Welcome to the Make School Great Again podcast, where we challenge the status quo in education and cast a bold kingdom vision for the next generation. I'm Kale, and I'm here with my co-host James, and our thesis for today is the following. Every child reflects a divine image and deserves a personalized learning path that honors their God-given design and calling. Well, here we are, episode 7. I almost said 6, but it's 7. And I want to set up this episode with the following question. What if we stopped measuring kids by what they can't do and started cultivating what God already put inside them? Do you think, James, that would actually just reshape and flip the current education system on its head?
Most certainly. Less about outcomes, less about curriculum, more about what education tries to claim about the student.
Yes, it's and it's something that, both of our journeys being within the education system, both attending the traditional school system, and now being in the space that we're in. Wow, we've got some powerful stories to share on what happens when we do this, when we actually look at the individual for who they are and how God has designed them, and then how we are then able to work with them, with their gifts and abilities to truly give them that confidence, help bring out their passions. And that's what it's really about. However, we know school system, the design was certainly not to facilitate that outcome.
No, definitely not about having an individual blossom.
Yeah, that's right. And, it's not about, okay, how do we fix broken kids, right? Because I think the system wants to approach, well, let's try and fix them, or,
or at least label and categorize, right?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But a Christian worldview perspective on children is, seeing that divine design that's already placed within them, that God has given them. And so I think when educators, whether you're a teacher in a school or in the homeschooling space, or a parent, teaching your kids, when you view your kids through that lens, that everything changes. It literally flips the script on what we've been taught, I guess, in the West, and since the industrial era, right?
Yeah, and I think there's quite a beauty in that when you come to that understanding, and the focus is less on that outcome or that grade or what collectively a cohort is able to achieve from a school status point of view in academics. And it's all about, all right, what is our ranking, our school ranking? And it's all about, what can we get the kids to achieve? And we're not thinking about the individual student that is contributing to that overall school ranking and where they're going to go with it. So, the beauty that we've been able to see in our programs, and I'm just thinking about even my own kids in comparison to what the outcome of what the student did or was or had coming out of year 12. I'm really excited for this episode, Kale.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to bring in this verse. Psalm 139:14 says, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that full well. Imagine if the school systems had that foundational belief. I think that would just, do incredible things. I mean, the great thing about what we're about to talk about today is how we've taken those truths from the Bible and applied them into what we do at the Transformation Network, which is that reinforcement of the idea that it's God, it's not the system that defines their child's worth and design. And so I've got 2 examples. I want to share a story of when I was in the traditional school system about a moment that really inspired me to, I guess, want to pursue what I witnessed. And I've been able to witness more so in the space I'm in now. But I was putting together a new maths concept for the kids to learn. And this is an all-boys school. And, you're typically you kind of get passed on the class in terms of the previous year, and then the levels and where they are, the low, middle, high. And the kids came in kind of already sort of assuming where they were, which I think is sad in any event, that, I'm just in the low group, I'm in the middle, I'm in the high. And there was a new maths program that came out that, did have that standardized sort of testing element, but it actually gave the students an opportunity to do pre-testing on a topic and then produce a personalized plan based on that pre-test. And so I remember thinking, oh, this might shake things up because I can get this feedback in real time, which was so great about the technology. The pre-testing element could be done quick. And what that showed me was that for a particular maths concept, it might have even been something as basic as or as general as whole number. One particular student that was always labeled and put in the low group aced it. He was like in the 90%. And I remember going, okay, well, based on these results, he's going to be now in a group that explores this concept at more of an extension level. And when I was putting the different activities around and saying, all right, this group here, because kids know, they know if I'm in a group with this person, that kind of showcases my level of intelligence. And as soon as I said that this child was in the upper group that everyone knew it was like you could have heard a pin drop. Like,
yeah, right.
And this boy stands up and he's just like, he just felt 10 feet tall. It was incredible. But I was just like, hey, this is a real time moment of learning for everyone where, hey, he's actually quite clever on this area. And so why would I keep him in the lower area? Because that's what he's always been in. And that for me just it was really insightful for me at the time, because in that system you don't really have the time to be doing those kinds of
individualized sort of finding that, then going, oh, okay, we can move according to topic, or normally it's like for the year, here you are in this group, and if you've gone to the next step, it's a rarity that it can be based on individual interest or topics or things that they're making connections with.
And so that was taking that example into a space where our job is to really foster and nurture and personalize the opportunities our kids have. I'll share, like, iProject is, I guess, the epitome of having one child and then a team or an educator work on developing them as an individual at a real sort of micro level. And so those opportunities have been incredible, because we've taken kids from the school system that have come in with all the labels. They're struggling, they're defiant, they're this, that, and the other, and then we start to have a conversation with them about what is interesting in them at the moment, how they feel they're going with certain things. Do they need some extra help on certain topics that could explore? And in that relationship building and mentoring with that child, it becomes clear quite quickly what interests them, what makes them tick, and where you can kind of move them in that learning pathway, whether it is, actually, let's hang out in the fractions section for a little bit more, or what, this actually connects to the bigger topic we're looking at. Let's try it from this angle. And so it's always this sort of ongoing customization journey that I always tell families. I want that experience to be something that is dynamic and active. And that would be the same for the KTA group space. I mean, you work in that space a bit more than me, but would you say, even though we have small groups, because we were discussing in the pre-show, class-based learning where you've got 25, 30 kids, it's impossible to really facilitate differentiation and personalized, customized learning. You just can't do it. But we have group learning, KTA. How would you say we foster that ability to give them personalization and options in how they approach things?
Yeah, it's great. I think you make a really good point about the fact that, differentiation is such a buzzword in the education system. It's all about differentiation. And as curriculum leader, I was like, all right, how are you differentiating for your students? And we think that we've got low, middle, or at grade level and above grade level. That's differentiation enough, as long as we've got some sort of appropriation in there, or you might have a kid that has lower accessibility in some way, shape, or form, so we've modified a task, and that's enough for differentiation. But if we're thinking about how do we differentiate, like, truly for the student to engage with, in that large classroom context and setting, it's almost impossible. And we've seen some in the system, some good sort of thoughts that have happened, but it's not the day to day. And I think for me, seeing my own kids in KTA before I jump into like how we go about it in the upper level, but my own kids, they're learning these concepts with these classes, these ideas, that's really sort of holistic in their approaches, looking at multiple uh, curriculum areas, but the way in which the kids can engage with it themselves, it very much is leaning more towards not only their interests or their preferences, but also their strengths. Like what are they good at? Is drawing their thing? Is being able to write? Is the family at home wanting to develop it as a written component, or writing a song and extending them and trying to do something different. So differentiation looks less like, or I guess for in the KTA setting, differentiation by buzzword terms looks less like, oh yeah, tried to do it this way, or everyone can individualize based on what's set out. But instead it's, all right, we've got this thing that we're trying to learn about or explore or jump into. Like, how could you, the kid themselves, how do you want to do that? And sure, the teacher has given ideas around that, but a lot of the time it's allowed for, especially my kids, to just be creative and think about, Noah's good in this Minecraft. They're learning about ancient Egypt. They're doing a research report on it. He loves editing. He loves building things on Minecraft. And so he's done this full, still in-depth research project, but building the assets or building the components around it, and then did this voiceover and these sound effects because he then likes the video editing side of things. And the information that he was able to come out with on that, I was like, oh, that's like really impressive. And it's not, sure, why can't you do that in the classroom? There's not the time or the space for the kids or the students to just really explore that, and then have 25 different ways to do that, to then for the teacher to go, oh yeah, and really understand that. And I think the difference between differentiation from that system point of view to what we're trying to allow for in KTA is that in KTA there's not a wrong or right way to do it. It's not that this is the outcome that you must hit. We're just trying to build this inquiry, this understanding, this interest, this genuine connection of learning and growth that the student is able to, or the kid, or however you want to define, is able to go, oh, like I really enjoyed this, and this is how I interact with it, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things I've also seen is that, and it's not to say you'd never do the things that the kids don't want to do. Like if there's an area that needs to be developed, that's completely normal. And we all have those areas. But I think the challenge is then going, well, how do I create an opportunity to facilitate, build on where they're at currently? For one particular student I'm working with, story writing and sentence structure isn't a key strength of theirs. So this is where we actually used AI as a tool, and you connect with this to construct a kind of like an exemplar text of where we were headed, what we wanted as an end goal, and to use that as a guide to then help facilitate the ideas and what it should sound like and how it could look. And so alongside that, and then some scaffolding and allowing him to just write down his ideas. I always say, I'm not worried about your spelling, your grammar and punctuation, all that. I just want to
We'll get to that. Yeah, that's right.
Let's get your ideas.
Yeah.
Then we can worry about the structure and punctuation and grammar. But there are ways to go about it to at least bring down those initial barriers that kids think they need to have to attempt something new. And that's where I think is a key difference with the personalized approach. And if you're a parent educating from home, you know your child better than anyone.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
so that's where you can, tap into those things and be problem solving with your child to work on those things that need the extra help and support.
Yeah. I think something else that I loved about how we can do things at KTA, we had our end of term meeting, and unlike other schools where it's meetings for the sake of meetings, we're short, succinct, we get together because it's, there's asynchronous sort of connection and all that sort of stuff. And, we're aligned on a mission and a vision. But the sort of talking about, right, what does next term look like? And our educators come to the table and they talk about, okay, our students have interest in this and they have interest in, coding, for example, or this part of history. Like, how can we, in a student focus, interest, skill development, talents, etc. Like, how can we formulate things that allows for that? And what would that look like when our classes get bigger? I don't think it's going to change at all, because it is then we're able to, and that's the difference with KTA. We flip it. We're making it about holistic student growth and learning and understanding, and then how do we piece the curriculum into that, instead of going, this is the curriculum and you need to ascribe to it in these set ways. So that was just another sort of thing. It's like, where are these interests, where are these skills, where are these things that kids are already wanting to continue to explore and grow in, and then how do we make it work for them in a really personalized, individualized, intentional way?
Yeah. And that, and it's a true statement to say the system isn't working. And like I said, it wasn't set up to facilitate that kind of thinking and creativity, and even a general understanding of what it means to be human from a biblical perspective. And so we'll move on to the next segment. A Gallup stat says only 3% of students strongly agree school helps them discover their strengths. Which affirms what we've just been talking about. When you don't go to school to have those things drawn out, you go to school to follow the plan set before you for the sake of ticking the boxes and reaching the standards that the government, the state has set. Full stop. There'll be exceptions. I'm sure there's great teachers out there, and there's great, I'm sure, learning spaces that do exist. It's not the norm, or the system hasn't been designed to facilitate it. So power to the teachers that see how it is and find ways to navigate the difficult, the tape that's set up within the system. So, I think we spoke about this idea that, your child is not average. They are unique. And when if I was to be put a label on how was I as a student in school, I'd probably fit into that average category based on the standards, the standardization, and results. So for me, I remember thinking that sort of, you take a little bit of that, or you take that into adulthood. I was average at school because that's just how I was. And then when you start to find the things that God's called you to be or that you're interested in, you excel in. And so I think that, a lot of people find that too late. It's like, no, the kids should be discovering these opportunities or having the space to explore these things well before, they finish school. And so, I think that when you're standardizing education, you're suppressing brilliance in everyone.
I'm really surprised by the 3% discover that students discover or understand or grow in their strengths at school. Like we talked a couple episodes about how this school age are these formative years, right? Not just from an understanding point of view, but character and development and who they are and how they interact with others and interact with the world. And these are really where the importance of finding those strengths, those talents, those skills is crucial, because it is part of the formation of who they are and where they become. And I think that ties in with what you were saying, that when it's labeled or categorized or sort of placed in this thing, like, you do carry that into adulthood. And there's so much, lack of direction with young people sort of going, all right, how am I getting into the world? What's next? What do I need to do? Or not only that, they take the position of just, and I think this is the concern with society, is that they're not standing up for what's right. They don't have the moral courage. They don't have the values. They're so easily swayed because they don't have strength. But again, the individual strengths, understand that from a leadership point of view, but then for the Christian worldview, like they don't have that sense of solid identity in who they are and who God calls them to be, and the design that he has for their life. And so that is a concern, and I think it makes so much sense as to why we're seeing school leavers, or this issue in amongst education into young adulthood.
Mm-hmm. And you would have seen this. I saw it. We the growth of that wall in the staff room that has all the children's sort of challenges and
Yeah,
concerns and issues. That wall seems to just grow every
yeah, yeah.
year. Which is this idea that we're looking for all the things that
Mm.
are
Are
wrong
wrong,
or
are broken.
broken with the child,
Yeah.
and everyone needs to know about it so we can know that that's the profile of the student. And
Mm.
I was sharing before to you, I one of the worst things I used to dislike in that system was you get handed over a new student. It comes with this bag of
Mm.
paperwork of
Mm.
here's sort of why they're the way they are. And
Yeah.
I remember thinking, okay, I don't want to dismiss it straight away, but at least give me a chance to work with the child and
Mm.
observe them and
Mm.
find out how they are from my perspective and get to know them as an individual
Yeah.
before reading all this stuff, developing this preconceived idea of what they're like, and then
Mm.
finding out, actually, I see this completely different. We only
Mm.
need to just do this, this, and this.
Mm.
And so I think that baggage that drags along with the kids as they go through the school system is
Mm.
part of the problem too, because
Yeah.
everyone's trying to diagnose whether it's to get the extra funding, whether it's to
Yeah.
get the extra support, and just label
Yeah.
everywhere you go.
It becomes actually a problem first thing, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So the kids are coming into our classroom, and I've had it multiple times as well, where you need to read this profile before you even meet this kid and start teaching them, and so therefore you're then taking on the problem by definition of what apparently this kid has, or multiple. And so it becomes problem focused. So how are we managing the problem before they even step into our classroom? And then whether it be uh, subconscious or preconceived, all right, this is how I'm going to manage this kid. You're you're then limiting the either potential of this kid, the creativity, how they might interact inside of your classroom with others, or how you're setting them up for success, rather than going, okay, each person is an individual. Each student is different, and they see the world differently. They interact with the world differently. They're unique in how God has created them. And so then going, okay, well, I've identified a complication with this student. Okay, this now then becomes a solution pack or strategy pack to help me support this student in the best way possible, with a solution focused rather than this preconceived problem. I'm going to have these problems. I need to sit them in front of the classroom. I need to not give them, and they need to hold a squishy ball while they do that, right? And so I think it's the whole idea of, again, the kid is perceived as broken, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this broken focus
Mm-hmm.
rather than this individual focus. And how do we support the individual rather than identifying, here's the problems, this is how I manage it.
And because the model is so much, they're required to sit in a seat for
Mm.
extended periods of time, and for boys that's probably even harder.
Yeah.
And one of the most heartbreaking things that I would see was that those that struggle to just sit and
Mm.
listen
Mm.
were given the ADHD
Yeah.
label,
Yeah.
loaded up with drugs,
Yeah.
and then they take the drugs, and then they're sitting there like little zombies.
Yeah.
And that was, oh look, it's fixed it.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah. They're in our classroom and they
he's now
must
a
be
compliant
learning because
student.
they're quiet. I know.
That was
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
When all they needed was maybe a run to the oval and back,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
did with my class. I would say when we had extended periods of time within the classroom and there wasn't sort of that normal moving about or going to a
Mm.
different class, we were not too far from a climbing frame. And I would just say, after a certain period of time, I'd be mindful, I'd be aware of how they were tracking on the
Mm.
activities. Once I felt like they were they'd had a bit of enough, or they had enough, or they needed to do something
Mm.
different. I
Mm.
say, everyone, we're going to go to the climbing frame. We just ran, they
Yeah.
climbed, they ran around. and we came back and they were more productive, even though we
Mm.
spent maybe 10, 15 minutes
Mm.
just playing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
recognize that as a way to offset this idea where they can't sit still or they can't focus. No, they just need to move more.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's the problem with school. We're
And
telling them to
that's the
sit.
next problem. Exactly. The
Yeah.
whole idea that the system is broken. And we've talked about this before and just briefly, and it's probably worth a deep dive into it in a later episode around, the system was set up for the industrial era and it was set up to line up workers to then step up into working in industry and this whole sit still, stay focused just doesn't work. And there's a lot of science also behind sort of that kinesthetic and that movement and the right time to do that based on developmental ages and as you said, especially for boys and different times of day or the capacity of how much and sitting still and the we think if we've controlled the class and they're sitting down and they're quiet, they're listening and they're learning, which there's a lot to back that's not necessarily the case. And I think that's what I love about homeschooling is that we've got capacity to break up the day. To my son prefers to wake up sort of while he's fresh, get as much done as possible in the morning so that he's got the rest of the day to do what he wants to do. And if he doesn't start his day like that, he's not, and he recognizes it himself, he's not as effective because there's too many other distractions or things going on in the day. So it means that we've got the flexibility around that where one of my daughters, she prefers to just have a nice quiet, easy morning, sort of just get into the day, the groove, it's happening. And then she goes, all right, I'm ready to jump into the schooling, which, again, the system isn't set up to support the individual and the individual's way of learning.
Let's talk about another angle on the system and how it's set up. I mean, we would agree that it's set up and to recognize success is about performance and results, competition, and how you're sort of compared with other students. But it's rare that there's a focus on the power of connection and how we're developing kids to be emotionally, I guess, mature and aware of others, and the importance of how they might be able to make somebody feel like it not just being about themselves.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said about that,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about one of our little KTA groups that is such a beautiful representation of this idea about connection over performance shortly. But there's a story you sent me, this story on Instagram from an account called Ready Set Parent, and it's the Dr. Sloan study summary. And they were saying that kids who were the most successful weren't the smartest or funniest. They were the ones who made others feel valued, and the long-term results showed that they had better jobs, stronger marriages, happier lives. And that was also backed up by a Harvard 80-year study that showed that strong relationships in your 20s, not your GPA or your ATAR, was a predictor of lifelong success. So the ability to connect and have empathy and we see quite clearly in Scripture, Philippians 2:4, it says, "Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others." Romans 12:10, "Be devoted to one another in love, honor one another above yourselves." And so, when the culture is about performance and that is success, what is really actually important is, how am I raising my child to treat others?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
the value of that, I would say, far surpasses what score or grade you got in school. Employers are going to be looking for how you interact and how you treat others far above your grade at school.
Yeah. Yeah, no, certainly. There's so many things to say in this space, and I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit about our little 6 to 7 age group also shortly. But the Australian system is so much based on ATAR or BCE or whatever it is, and getting these grades, and the higher the grades, the more likely to get the university or the course that you want to get. And like even early entry is based on grades, right? It's not anything else. I do like that in America. There's a slightly different model with a lot of the universities that you build a bit of a portfolio around you and who you are and what you do and your interests and a bit of a philosophy statement and I think a lot of American universities recognize the person side of it, and so when I've looked into that sort of space a bit, I was like, that's a great model, that it's not just based on the outcome. We've finally achieved a 97 ATAR. I'm going to be able to get in and do my vet science or whatever it's going to be. I think also another flip side to that with the whole the personhood sort of side of things. You're right. Employees don't really look at your grade. Like I remember going into going into teaching, thinking, I didn't get the best grades at university. Like I did well in my music, and I sort of wanted to work whilst doing my teaching degree, and a little bit of that P's get degrees mentality at times. And I'm like, oh no, what are they going to think with my transcript? And like, because this was again an top all boys school in Sydney that had a reputation, and they don't even look at it. And I was like, oh, like they just want to know, how do I sit? How do I interact? What sort of like do I feel like a good fit from a personality point of view? And I was shocked, because everything that you're trained is all about the grade. It's about the outcome. It's about the number that you've got on that piece of paper. And I remember even like when you sit for your HSC, you're just putting in your student number. Again, you are subject to a number. No name, no connection, know who you are. It's whatever comes out there. And so to have this sort of interview where I was worried about my outcome, to then go, oh, they liked who I was as a person, and what I could bring to the table was exactly this, right? It was about this whole, all right, it's are you communicative? Will you make a good connection? Are you a fit for the culture? Are you right for the culture? And so I don't know why there's this huge push in the education to get these numbers, to get to this uni, which again, we're working towards numbers or this GPA or this average, which again, we go to the employee and they don't even look, or they're hardly even looking at what we're actually getting on that transcript.
And then for a lot of the time, they're jobs that won't even exist.
That's a whole other episode again, right?
Yeah, that's a whole other episode. And there'll always be examples of students that pursue the college, the university route for specific industries. Totally understand that.
Yeah.
And then there's also the courses that are just absolute nonsense courses.
Yeah.
And then there's things that will be replaced or aren't going to be able to bring a return back to the student based on how quickly the world's moving.
Yeah, especially now.
And so,
let's talk about the what I guess the fruit of that is, what that actually looks like. Yeah.
It's about discipling design over data. So looking at the individual and how, especially faith-based education honors that design. And that's the starting point.
Yeah.
There is a better way. If you're a parent with your children within the school system and this episode's resonating with you, we're obviously advocates for homeschooling because of the ability to treat your child as a disciple, not that data point.
Yeah.
That's such a key difference, because we don't look at data points with our kids that go through our programs. They're not a data point at all.
Yeah.
How can you show your understanding and learning in a creative way that you can share with others and teach others about? That's the data point we're looking for.
Yeah.
And so we do have kids that come into our programs that are still looking for that recognition with a number. And for them, that's a process of understanding, well, actually, they're shaping the way they then view why they do what they do. Why am I learning this? What's the point? How is this going to benefit me and allow me to grow as an individual and make an impact in my sphere of life that God has called me to be?
Exactly. So, I think, that sort of it transitions perfectly into, how we're talking about the group. It takes away the competitiveness, and it brings of the data and brings in that relationship, that discipleship, that encouragement between our students. And my daughter, my second youngest, is in this 6 to 7 group, and it is to see the chat that goes on there is the most I know you can see it on your end too as a host. Is like the most beautiful, encouraging communication between kids that I've ever seen, and it doesn't happen in the school space, especially as kids get older. And what I'm most excited about is that this is like creating this culture and creating sort of what the norm is in their encouraging of one another and supporting one another. And this is our youngest age group, right? That's just going to continue to grow and to sort of shape this culture as KTA gets through. And I know all the other age groups are similar, and they're really encouraging to each other as well. But I just love that this group in our 6 to 7. So just briefly, they each week they do little tasks and activities, and they do it with their parents or their siblings or whatever it is, and one of them might put up a picture of created like a physical projecty thing, and then the next kid's like, oh, that's a great idea, and they're really encouraging. Oh, I love this X name. That's really, really nice. And it's some sort of encouraging thing. Here's my one. And then they'll share the picture of what they've done this week. And then they'll encourage, oh, that's really great. And these are 6 and 7-year-olds that are, encouraging one another, and, their parents are there to support them. But that's the discipleship, right? Like, how do we train our own kids to be encouraging of their peers and those that they're interacting with? And it's not about just self or mine's better than theirs or whatever it is. It's recognizing the gifts, the skills, the talents in their peers to encourage that in each other. And it's not competitive to go, oh, mine is better than theirs, or theirs is better than this. There's no sort of sense of, they've colored better than I, or drawn better, or whatever it is. It's all about, this is great, and supporting each other. And like the most recent one, someone sings a song, a Seela sings a song, and then the next kid comes in, it's like, oh, here's the song, I wanted to do one too. And instead of saying, oh, I've got, they've done a song and I only did this, it's sort of, or they're copying me. It's nothing about that, right? It's actually about, oh, that's a great idea, I want to have a turn doing that, and not competing with that, but it's giving permission for their own creativity and exploring and trying something different by learning off each other. And it's this exact thing that we're talking about, right? It's not about data, it's not about competing, it's about the individual exploration, discipleship. How do we train our own children to encourage each other in that space? And it's just beautiful to watch, and I'm really excited to see that group grow and also grow in their age and continue to support one another as they continue to grow in their learning and understanding in life.
And as a parent, you still might be thinking, well, I'm not a teacher, I don't have the time, I'm not qualified, and that type of thing. And obviously there are a lot of options. Like for some parents, they have the confidence and maybe the time to be that primary role. There's lots of outsourcing that is going on. We're part of that network that supports families in that space to come alongside and do some of that, especially the paperwork or the heavy lifting side. And so that's a possibility. But you're not alone, because everyone sort of gets to that point where they ask those things. I'm not a teacher, I'm not qualified. Trust me, your child better than any teacher could ever. And that's coming from both of us who have studied and done all that. We recognize it actually doesn't have
That's
really
right.
any impact on how you can unlock individuals, especially when you understand their design and you are, helping them explore why God has put them here and what the gifts are that he's given them. So I want to shift to a video that it was actually a homeschool mum, an advocate of the homeschooling space, Sam Sorbo, and she said this in a message that's gone viral across the US. And the video title is, I'll play 1 minute out of the 5, but it says, "Should you homeschool?" And I thought this just raises some really good points to those that are possibly looking at exploring this path.
Yeah, great.
Should we homeschool our kids? More and more concerned parents are asking this question. I was one of them. The reasons are obvious. Our public schools are an embarrassment. Instead of teaching pride in America, they teach that America was founded by racists for racists. Instead of teaching students to be boys and girls of good character, they teach them they might not be boys or girls at all. Instead of teaching them about the importance of personal responsibility, they teach them to blame others for their problems. With a curriculum like that, why wouldn't parents consider homeschooling? Unfortunately, while many consider it, few actually do it. They're afraid that they're not qualified teachers, that they don't have the time. Their kids won't be properly socialized. They won't get into a good college. It's financially unworkable. I get it. I worried about all those things too. I don't anymore because I did it. And I quickly came to love it. And so did my kids.
All right. Short, powerful video there. It's obviously a little bit longer. We'll attach the link in the description. But she raises, I think, 3 questions there that are very, I don't know, I think they're so universal, no matter where you are in the world. Just with not being qualified, not having the time, the socialization issue, you won't get into a good college, and it's financially unworkable, and those types of things. So, yeah, initial thoughts or comments on that from your perspective?
Yeah, I think we've at multiple different times addressed quite a few of these different questions in various episodes. So if you haven't listened to them yet, go back and check out our previous episodes in this sort of space. But I loved what you said earlier about you're most qualified to teach your children, regardless of any degree that you have, because of how you connect to them and you know them better. And at the end of the day, the teacher inside of the classroom is teaching to the curriculum. They're not teaching to the child, right? And so, in knowing your kids, you know where they're gifted, you know where they're interested, and then you can foster that. And what I've loved, which sort of connects to some of those other questions, is that in seeing or being around homeschool communities and environments for a long time now, is that parents have fostered that. They've put their kids in cooking classes early because they've had this interest in cooking, or they've had this, they've been able to start open universities at age 15 because they've got a career that they're wanting to pursue. And so these whole ideas of they're not going to be sociable and they're not going to be workable, they're almost more sociable and workable because the opportunities that is presented to them at an earlier age. I do the older 15 to 17-year-olds, and they've got their classes, but they can say yes to work in the middle of the day when peers can't, and they're building these skills, and they're saving, and they're starting to think about, okay, like, how do you work for someone? How do you start to have goals that to work towards, and the opportunities presented to them because of that, and that their peers or the same age at school can't say yes to. They can just either after school or on a weekend. And so they're exploring these interests and the things that grow them and who they are and what they want to become and developing these skills so much earlier in life. And if in the homeschool environment, we can foster that, and we do foster that. My son, 13, loves editing reels and YouTube, and he, for our business, does our client reels and takes the content and plays around with it and develops something because it's what he's interested in, and we can, because he's homeschooled, we can make that work in and amongst his day.
And it's it's amazing. I think it actually reflects the real world more than school ever will. Because you, in the real world, you don't just then go and hang out with people your same age.
No.
You're working with people from all different ages. And so homeschooling actually facilitates that much more opportunity than school ever will. And, I can't emphasize this enough, that homeschooling isn't duplicating school at home.
Yeah, no.
I think that's a misconception. People think I have to do that. And unfortunately, government regulations in countries expect to see it in the home, and that's a challenge you have to wrestle with in your context. But it means discipling your child's mind, heart, and spirit with freedom, flexibility, and faith. And that is the most valuable education that they can receive, as opposed to the rest of the curriculum, what they're being told to know and understand in the school setting. So be encouraged by the idea that you are not alone in thinking you can't do it. You can, and there are plenty of resources now more than ever to support you in that.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Well, we'll finish up our end of the episode here and move into Around the Grounds in Christian Education. Around the grounds, around the grounds, around the grounds in Christian education. Hey! All right, welcome back to Around the Grounds in Christian Education. And our first news article of the week was something that really caught my eye due to the nature of what is being proposed. And this is from the beautiful California in the US, that is, there's a bill being proposed. The Californian is the AB 495 bill. And I stumbled across this through a pastor I follow in the US called Jack Hibbs, and he's been making waves around this issue, informing and bringing it to light, because what it essentially is aiming to do would be to allow any non-related adult, a neighbor, teacher, ex-relative, or even a complete stranger to take custody of your child without your knowledge or consent. No background check, no court order, no parent signature, just a piece of paper from within the public school system, which is shocking.
Shocking. I don't even know what to say on that, to be perfectly honest. How is that even been proposed?
Yes. And Jack Hibbs is quite vocal in saying if this bill passes, he's actually saying get your kids out of the state, move. Yeah. That's how serious it is. Yeah. And he's, claimed it's the most dangerous bill that we've ever seen, and it's being pushed right now by lawmakers in Sacramento. So he's calling on all parents to show up at the Capitol there on August 19 to make their voices heard, which I think is very worthwhile thing to do if you are, able to, and that is where you are. I'll play a short clip of just to give a bit more context of this bill coming from Jack himself.
Everybody, just recently I made an announcement regarding Assembly Bill 495 in California and the extreme nature of that bill. And I even encouraged our church members that if this bill passes, that I would encourage them, I did encourage them to get out of California, to save your child. I'm going to stick with that narrative, and I'm not going to back down from it.
California's AB 495 is being called the California legislators' trafficking bill.
It's a meat market bill. It is a trafficking bill. It is unbelievable. It allows an individual to obtain this new form that comes with the bill. They fill it out, and they can name a child. John goes to a school in California and says, I have this form, and I am asking for Susie Q to be received into my custody. I want to take her out of school. The bill does not require a background check for this man, requires no identification, no driver's license, no nothing.
Man, you guys, just when we thought things could.
So he's done quite a good job of rallying support, different people online talking about the bill. So hopefully we see, a back down from the government there.
Yeah. It reminds me sort of during the whole COVID time. I don't know, now you probably have to censor me by saying that word. But where, in around these mandates at the time and sort of the conspiracies or the discussions around what is this going to turn into, what does this look like, and knowing that even some states in Australia were sort of, if you don't do X amount of the schedule or vaccines or whatever it is for your own kids, then that could be seen as neglect and therefore be taken out of your care. And for me, that's a huge concern to go, all right, what, again, it's the government overreach into the home, into the family unit, and just completely sort of pulling it apart and giving zero rights or autonomy or protection around that.
And tying those kind of decisions to funding. And so if you're not going ahead with that, you're going to lose your funding.
Yeah.
It's going to be seen, as you said, as neglect. And I can say I've spoken to families within the public system in Australia where there's it's maybe not as brutal in its application as this bill, but it does give certain people within the school system powers to disconnect that connection from families.
Yeah.
And that's only been brought to my attention in recent months. So it seems to be that's happening here too, just in a different way.
Yeah.
But it's something to be aware of, that if your child is in the public system, to be considering and being aware of what your rights are and what the rights are, or what's being proposed and has passed as what the school is actually able to do in the event that, you know, you want to make a decision for your family that doesn't go along with the narrative or the decisions that the government has made. So quite alarming. So we'll be watching that case
very closely.
There is someone in the crowd that when he mentioned this, someone yelled out in the long extended version. You can check it out on his Instagram. Was like, "I just homeschool." I was like, love that guy.
Yeah.
And his response was, "You have no idea what's coming to the state of California from a home perspective with just the proposed legislation that is wanting to pass to make that harder." So we're in a battle. They're not stopping, and they will never stop. And so there is something to be said about being aware of your context and where you are and how the law is shifting around these topics. Let's go to our next story, which is the great college shift or university shift here. And this data comes from an ASA 2024 survey, which said this: only 45% of US teens, grades 7 to 12, now plan to attend a 2 or 4 year college, which was down from 73% in 2018. 38% say they'd rather pursue trade schools, certificates, or apprenticeships, which was up from 12% in 2018. 60% still say college is important, especially girls, 70% versus boys, 54%. But national enrollment dropped to 62.8% in 2024, down from 66.8% in 2019. And when we compare this to Australia for our context, similar thing is happening. You've got 59% of Australian teens from 15 to 24 say they plan to go to university. 42% are preferring the alternatives like TAFE and trades, apprenticeships, gap years, or entrepreneurship. And with similar concerns from, what they're going to be getting back, the fears around the costs, and the VET space is growing because of the lower debt and the higher immediate employability. And there's that idea of, what are you going to university for, and what's the chances you're actually going to be able to pay back, especially in the US, different system of, how access to those institutions. But still, I think just like in the US, Aussie teens are waking up that they don't have to go this route. They don't want debt without direction. They do want purpose. And so that shift, I think we are seeing in that Gen Z age bracket, that they want pathways that match their divine design, which is awesome. I love that.
And it's a very sort of interest based and intentional, and I've shifted hugely in this sort of space around my own sort of trajectory and personal growth, and stepping out of sort of that educational leadership space into entrepreneurship myself, and the opportunities that come from that, and it's not easy, but the opportunities that come from sort of either starting your own business or doing a trade that is laborious, because of how, especially now, things are shifting with AI being able to take over some of the typical roles or jobs that a lot of people sort of go to university for and train to do. But like, if you look at the jobs and the who's making the most money, that at the top, which is unlimited, is the business owner. And when moving towards an age where any and everyone can have a business in some way, shape or form, and the ceiling is limitless depending on the effort, the opportunity, the time, how you market yourself. And that's a whole sort of different conversation completely. But yeah, I think that students are recognizing this, or kids are recognizing this, and that there's so much that they've got access to. They don't have to follow a particular trajectory, and they can do something that, as this whole podcast episode has been about what they're interested in, and what they're designed to do. And then they can sort of make money or make business or make relationships or whatever it is from that. And again, Instagram, my main source of truth, that this generation is going to apparently be have the most amount of millionaires, or people making their own money than any other generation before them, because of the opportunities and people moving into this trajectory, rather than going, I'm following the system, I'm getting into university, and I'm hitting a job with a capped salary.
I mean, Kiyosaki's been talking about this for decades, right?
Yeah. Love Kiyosaki.
Reading his book with a student, I think I mentioned in early episodes, and even though it's written to that, I think, the 90s, it's still as relevant today. The principles are the same. Back to the university thing, we spoke about one aspect of the relevance of the degrees and what's being offered. We didn't touch on how woke they've become.
Yeah.
My experiences in my most recent completion of a master's was one of the most challenging thing was navigating through the wokeness of the articles that I had to read and respond to, because it was framed from, very much a leftist ideology, which has obviously infiltrated universities. And I've got some information here on that supports this, right? So University of California system has removed standardized testing. You might think, oh, that's good, but it's part of their equity policy, raising concerns about academic rigor. So it's just, let's just let everyone in. Based on the different labels that you have. Some universities now require DEI, so diversity, equity, inclusion statements, just to apply for a faculty role. So you're being almost graded on how many boxes you tick within their framework. In 2024, most people, if you were sort of paying attention in that space, would have seen Harvard facing legal battles over its race-based admissions policy, following SCOTUS ruling striking down affirmative action. Women's only events excluding men, and the LGBTQ plus centers hosting drag shows for students, even in the K-12 arena. In one college, math students were required to reflect on their math privilege in first year session.
I have zero math privilege, by the way.
Yeah, math is apparently now racist too, which was just incredible. And then obviously, last year, this year, we're seeing an incredible rise of anti-Semitism on campuses. There's been anti-Semitic chants, threats, hostile environments for Jewish students, and a lot of them are actually pulling out because of safety concerns. I mean, it's totally understandable. And we're seeing that spike in the West, the UK, Canada, Australia. And it's often marked as, well, it's just political activism. No. This is pre-1940 stuff rearing its ugly head and coming back into that space, which is quite alarming. So, someone said to me, should I send my child to university? My short answer is no. But, consider what their passions are. Is it something that is definitely needed to do what they want to do? If not, I'd be finding ways to avoid it, in my opinion.
100% agree. I did some research a couple of years ago in this space around how did these universities fall away from their sort of really established good Christian heritage, and it's quite alarming, and I don't have time for it now, but I second that there's that university. I would argue, unless your passion and your child's individual, what they've been designed and what they feel is part of their calling or what they want to do, and that's the trajectory to get to that is university, then support that, endorse that, be really intentional around what university, the worldview, etc. But again, I think that as parents and then also as educators, if we're focusing on the individual, the design, what their strengths are, and how they are going to make an impact in the world based on that, us discipling them through that, then that's the trajectory. It doesn't have to follow a set system or way. That's where we should be really sort of growing our children. Again, it's not about like what this whole episode has been on. It's not they fit a box or they're average or they're broken. We just need to fix the pieces around that. It's very much about they're an individual, they're uniquely made, they're intentionally made, they're designed by God. They have a unique identity and calling and impact they're going to have on the world. Let's foster that.
And that fostering on calling, because there's some verses I want to finish on that I think are a good takeaway for parents that are thinking, well, how do I cultivate or nurture what it is that God has for them? And so I think there's two ways to look at this. It's, well, how am I developing and facilitating and helping their walk with God and their journey with understanding the Bible and who Jesus is and the cross and sin and our nature. I think those foundational things are really important. And with that comes this understanding, well, I can talk to God about these things. This relationship idea is where when you commit your life to Jesus and you understand what he's done for you, that trusting in the Lord with all your heart and leaning not on your own understanding is what starts to unfold. Because when you do that, that's when he will make your path straight. That direction on where to go is seen when we trust in the Lord and lean on only him and have him as our personal savior. Psalm 32:8 says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. And it's such a reminder that God isn't silent. He's personal. He's involved. He's loving. And that's ultimately the goal for our kids. My kids, I want the same. I want them to be growing in an understanding of the Lord and their the knowledge that they can talk and pray and hear from him, and he will direct their paths. So I think we'll wrap it up there, but hopefully that's an encouragement to families that are in a place where they're looking to make a change and challenge the status quo, as we say at the beginning of every episode. I'm Kale. James, been a pleasure to have you again. Don't forget to share, like, and follow us on all platforms. We look forward to have you joining us next week. Until then.
See you then. Thanks, Kale. Let's go. Bye.